I think rediscovering satisfaction with what you're currently doing is huge because I feel like our culture today, people are doing a lot of job hopping. They're constantly switching what they do and looking for something that's going to fulfill them and kind of ignoring some of these habits that you can actually establish to rediscover the fulfillment in what you're already doing,
Yeah.
which I think is more efficient.
It's huge. And I chose to walk away from law at a point where I literally had my best result at the end of my career. I feel great about that. And I chose to change because over a long period of time, I had been starting to work with some people doing this. I really feel like I can make a bigger and better impact on the world, so to speak, doing what I'm doing than I could have done helping people get money for the yachts that sank or burned or had collisions, which is
Right.
I was an insurance coverage lawyer primarily in maritime, which I'm a boat girl. So that part was awesome. I got to do stuff with boats, but I didn't feel like I was really getting meaning that I wanted or having the kind of interactions I wanted in that career. But I will say, like, I had rediscovered my joy in it by the time it was over. I had a
Yeah.
planned exit, and when I did that, I was doing this stuff. I was really enjoying it. I was like, and I've had a lot of people like, well, what? And this is another hard thing. You have people saying, "What are you doing? Why would you leave that?" You know, but again, I think I could have easily stayed in it after because I have a lot of freedom. I feel good about this. I have a lot of freedom because I'm divorced without kids. So I don't have to worry about putting my kids through college. If I have to take a cut and pay for a while to get a new business off the ground, I can. But
Right.
I'm really lucky to be in that position, and most people aren't, you know. So if you can find the joy, and the thing is too, let's face it, every job has stuff that sucks about it. Every job does. So, what are you going to do? Leave one job that has some parts you don't like to go to another job that has parts you don't like. And if you're the person who isn't taking care of yourself, you're just going to zone in on the bad parts of the next career.
Yeah.
You need to
That's
learn how, if you don't learn these skills, and I do think this is life skill stuff, um, you're going to be burned out no matter where you go.
Yeah. I think that's a huge point that if when you're starting to take the time to do something for yourself that you enjoy, even if it's separate from your main work actually does become more fulfilling. Even doing this and having these conversations, I feel like makes my job easier, even when I'm working probably too many hours. It's summer and it's busy and I'm working more hours than I would probably prefer. But being able to do this, which I really enjoy, and helping my audience, I feel like makes me more fulfilled at work and be able to do it much more easily with a measure of satisfaction because I am dedicating some time to do something that I'm passionate about, even though it's outside of work hours.
And there's one other thing I'd like to point out because I think it's really important for people who are doing these things is that we keep being told work life balance, right? And that's valuable to a degree. But when you, what I've seen a lot of with a lot of people is that, and I just saw a study recently that said that there's less interaction. The study, interestingly, was about the demise of the after work happy hour. And it wasn't just about, people having different attitudes about alcohol or whatever. It was that so many people don't want to do anything with the people they work with. They don't want to have that social time. But if you have no social connection with the people that you work with every day, you've got a team and you're in it, you spend more time doing that than almost anything else. How do you ever feel fulfilled when you're kind of like a person working alone in a group of people versus you've gotten to be really close to your team and you know their spouse's name and you know what their kids are doing in school and maybe you've gotten to know each other a little bit outside of work. And one of the things that I really recommend people do is to tell people at work about what they're doing outside of work and tell people outside of work about what they do in work. And sometimes that opens doors to opportunities you wouldn't have known about otherwise.
Hmm.
I race sailboats, and if I didn't tell people, hey, I race sailboats, and have somebody say, I've got this friend who needs crew, I never would have had the opportunity, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that social connection is huge.
Yeah, and it's something that when you try to, it's like in my mind, it's like having a lobotomy. You try to have, and I say, and I hope, cut the words out if you don't like it on your podcast, but what I say is work-life balance is bullshit.
Well, I feel like that's true because I feel like I'm constantly chasing work life balance. I'm constantly trying to find that. And I feel like when you chase the work life balance, you don't find it. And so I feel like I believe that that's probably true. I think it probably is bullshit.
And when you really focus on trying to make work-life balance, you're gonna you're gonna feel bad in every part of your life. You're not gonna do well enough at home, and you're not gonna do well enough at work because both you're going, I can't do this over here, and I can't do this over here. Where maybe if you're just allowing yourself to flow with what you need, you're gonna have you're going to have a full life. And that's what you want to have, right? We want to have a full life, not a lobotomized work environment from our home environment. Because in the end, we're whole people.
That's a great point. I think, especially because work in some manner or another is always going to be a part of your life. So why not build those social connections? Why not build that team while you're at work? And I think in the ED, that's easy to become that isolated person and feel like you're at work, you're all by yourself. And I feel much better at the end of the day if I've actually spent the time to tactfully speak to my coworkers, not be short with them. We're not just task robots. We can actually have a conversation about things, and I can tell them why we're doing something, take that extra time to be like, this is why we're managing this patient that way, instead of go do this please because I said so. It's much better to explain the rationale and actually build those relationships with people. And that's something for me that just doesn't come naturally. I'm very task oriented. I could go to work and just do my job and not make those social connections. So that's something I find I have to be very intentional about, is making sure I'm talking with my coworkers in a way that's not just getting tasks done, and then it makes everyone happier at the end of the day, I think, when you're a more cohesive team.
The flip side to it, too, is with your home life. I'll use an example. Let's say you're married, you have a spouse who does something that's nothing like what you do.
Yeah.
You spend all this time working at work. Your spouse does whatever your spouse does, right? And you never meet the people they work with. You never have connection or interaction with them. It doesn't help your relationship either. Because when you have a relationship and you and your spouse are a team, right? And your spouse meets, for instance, let's say you're working in the ER and you have people you work with frequently, and you mention them to your spouse. Your spouse could be getting jealous about those people. You could have all kinds of weird things going on that you don't even understand why, because they're excluded from that,
Mhm.
or you're excluded from theirs. But what if they could be best friends outside of work with that other person, or get to know them in a way that makes everything work better?
Yeah.
And I think that's something else that when we create these walls, we lose that opportunity. And I think it's a thing of modern life. And I say modern, I mean like the last 25, 30 years. My grandfather was the chairman of the board of a company, and he traveled all over the world. And my grandmother used to go with him. And I visited Spain and met people that knew my grandparents from those trips. And the ladies, these were, women my grandmother's age, would say, your grandmother was so great, and it's so nice to meet you, and we've heard about you, whatever. And then they'd say, those younger women, they never want to come, they never want to meet us. And to them, it was insulting, and it affected their husbands. And the younger generation, the fact that now, like, the leader of the company's wife doesn't like you because your wife doesn't come to the party, like, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
And, I'm not going to say everybody should go and, be a housewife like my grandmother was. But at the same time, if you have an opportunity to have dinner with the chairman and with your spouse, like, it's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
And a lot of people wouldn't do that. They wouldn't even invite their spouse to come.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, I mean, you are a partner with your spouse, even if you're doing separate things during the day. And maybe it is a cultural shift that we've had where we try to erect this wall between work and life. And that's probably not the healthiest thing. I mean, for me, even just opening up with my wife about, hey, had to deal with this kind of patient today. I'm really struggling with, this that I had to do today. I feel like is very helpful, not putting the burden on her, but just opening up about the struggles you have at work, and inviting them into that struggle, because I think it's really easy to be, we got to leave work at work and home at home. But your coworkers, I think, do want to hear about your life. They want to, hear about your kids and your pets and all that kind of stuff. And I think it makes you a better team when you know more about your coworkers. And then if you have a day where you're short with somebody, I think they're more understanding. Like, okay, I know Aaron. I know he's just dealing with some stress today. He didn't mean to be short with me. He's just dealing with something stressful, and they can actually understand you a little bit better when they know your background and what you're dealing with at home too.
Exactly.
I think that wall probably is not a healthy thing that we tend to erect a lot of times in our modern age, I guess.
Right. So it's like all of that, pull it all together, right? And that's I think how I was able to, and I didn't mention this, but I reversed the liver damage from PBC, which I was told you can't do.
Yeah.
I was told that the best thing I could hope for was that my staging with a FibroScan, it would stay the same and it would stay in remission and it wouldn't get worse. And I actually went from stage 2 to stage 0.
Wow.
And, part of that might be taking tons of vitamin C and selenium, which I read about somewhere. Part of it, I'm sure, is this stress reduction and changing the way I live and
Yeah.
see the world, because now I really do see the world differently, and it's a practice. It's not
Yeah.
something that happens overnight. It took 10 years. My diagnosis was in January of 2015. So, it's been 10 years and it's been a lot of change, and it takes time. And it's not,
Yeah.
it's step by step, one little thing at a time.
Yeah, I mean, and we know that stress, I mean, causes a lot of changes in your body for your physical health, your mental health. I mean, I think people underestimate the benefits of forming these habits that decrease your stress and the effects it can have on your body. I mean, it can be remarkable.
Yeah. And all of it together. And like I said, I think, the probably point number one for reducing burnout is take care of that physical needs stuff, because you really do have to take care of your body, and your mind follows, because your mind is tied to all of it.
Mhm.
And the other part of it is to really be clear to yourself about who you are.
Yeah.
And, I want to tell you, for all of your people, I have a community that has that. I told you I have like a meditation I do with people for clarity. And I have that as a resource they can get to online. So if they want to get to that, they can just text 33777 and put the word clarity in the text. And they can get to this community page, and it's not going to cost them anything, but they can just do that. And it might help them take that first step towards remembering what lights them up and then shooting for getting more of that.
What kind of things do you do in this meditation to kind of help people get clarity?
It's literally just a guided meditation, and it asks them to think about times when they felt alive, when they felt excited, when they felt, and I go through questions about it. Who was with you? What were you doing? What did it feel like? And it takes about 5-6 minutes. It's not very long, but it gives you an opportunity to just kind of sit back and imagine these things and kind of feel the feelings and figure out what comes up for you.
You talk about your philosophy, the art of bending time. What are some other strategies you use to make yourself more focused and more efficient and things like that?
Well, part of it is having the overall plan. Having a roadmap is crucial, because first of all, if you don't have any goals and you're just floundering, you're just doing the day to day every day, that's a recipe for burnout.
Yeah.
You're just going to feel like you're being taken for a ride. You're just going along. You don't
Mm.
have anything that you feel like you're in control of when that's happening. So you want to have a roadmap. You want to know what your plan is. You want to know what your goals are. Doesn't mean you have to accomplish those goals in a day or a week or a year even. It's just you want to have an overall picture, and that picture may change over time, but you want to know what you want. It's crucial. Part of what I tell people too, and this goes into this crossover socially, I tell people once they've got that picture of what they want and they have goals, that they want to build a dream team. They want to talk to people at work about, like, I use the example of I want to be a private pilot. And let's say you have a perception about getting a pilot's license that it's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars. You're going to have to go to flight school. It's buy a plane. Only rich people do this, right? Um, if you tell people you know at work and you say, hey, do you know anybody who's done this? Chances are good you're going to find somebody who knows how to shortcut that process and how to do it. You know, one thing I've learned, and it was not because I wanted to be a pilot, but I like this example because of this. I always had that perception that you'd have to go to flight school and it'd be very expensive. I had a friend who had a pilot's license. He got it by joining a club. The club owned Cessnas. The club had volunteers that did a lot of the work. Some of them were, retired private pilots or retired mechanics who wanted access to planes, and they volunteered their time. They had people who were instructors who gave really good rates or volunteered their time. It ended up being very inexpensive. You basically had to pay a membership fee plus like the cost of the fuel when you took the plane. And, that kind of opportunity most people don't even know exists.
Yeah.
When you raise sailboats, a lot of people think again, like the yacht club has a big closed gate and I have to belong and I have to be asked. You don't have to belong to a yacht club to race sailboats. They're desperate for people to crew on sailboats. All you need is to know somebody through your network. You meet somebody, and once you get on a boat and they tell you what to do, you're crew for life unless you're not a nice person to be around.
Yeah. I think that's so true for so many different goals people can have. I mean, whatever it is, I feel like if you never start to analyze and figure out how to execute on it, you're just going to live in fear that this is unobtainable. I mean, even when I went to PA school, I feel like that dream was so far distant at a certain point. I can't believe I actually got through it, but it was tiny baby steps. It was researching how to get into school, what classes do they want, how do I interview well, and it was a bunch of baby steps in a row that actually got me through something I thought would have been completely unachievable when I was, in my early college years. I think that once you start taking those small steps, even just researching whatever it is, you find that the barriers are not what you think they are. And you can take down one small barrier at a time, and all of a sudden you're starting to achieve this huge goal you thought was unobtainable.
Exactly. So that's a big one. And to give to your point, like you said, you researched, and research is great. But what if you just found out that somebody you knew had a spouse who was a PA and she'd been through that whole process and she could say, here, you need to do this, 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 and this. And that's it, right? And you would have had that time. That's part of the art of bending time, shortcutting those things. If you can, you can't always, not every time, but and building your team, finding those people you can count on when you need help when you're in the weeds.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Including training, like we talked about training people when you were in EMS, the people that you trained, if they're competent, and then they become the people you can count on, but not
Yeah.
if you micromanage and do their work for them.
Yeah, exactly. Um, do you have any other healthy routines that you want to speak to that you feel like have really improved your life?
I would say, and this is, I don't know how healthy of a routine it is, but it's a routine that keeps me sane and makes me happy. Um, and not everybody has this opportunity. I am not a morning person. Never been a morning person. Don't tell me to read The Morning Miracle because I'm not getting up at 5 in the morning. Okay. Um, it just doesn't work for me. But what I do every morning, I take my dog for a walk. I get a cup of coffee at a place that I love to sit down, and it's peaceful and it's quiet. And sometimes I do like marketing things on my phone or whatever. And then I go for a nice long walk along the water. And I just find that gives me a way to start my day that feels good. It could have been when I was a runner, I started my day with a run. It got me pumped. It got me in the mood to want to do more. I really feel like getting out in the sunshine in the morning. I live in Miami, so plenty of sunshine there year round. And I know that's not available for everyone, but getting something that makes you feel alive early in the morning, like when you get up. I'm not going to say at 5 because I won't do that, but something that makes you feel alive early in your day and gives you a chance to kind of come into your day with calm and purpose instead of coming into your day with, oh my God, I'm late for X, Y, and Z, and I'm scrambling to pick up the stuff I need to get to the first meeting. And like if you start your day on that like cortisol rush, it doesn't like your whole day is screwed by that.
Yeah. When you're waking up just with enough time to get to where you need to go.
Right. And that is where I think, like, if I had to do the miracle morning, it would be because I had to be at my job at 8 o'clock and I'm getting up at 5 to have my calm morning because I don't, and I do that sometimes. If I have an early flight, I'll get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and I'll pack and then I'll leave and then I'll have a nice breakfast at the airport. Like, because it's calm and it's nice and I feel like I'm getting a good start versus stressing out about getting there on time and worrying, you can always, and I say multitask, but it's not really multitasking. You know, I get to the airport early so I don't have to stress out about being on time for the plane, but then I'll do work on a laptop at a place where I can work at the airport. I can do that there, or I could do it at home and then scramble because I wasn't paying attention to the time.
Well, I think you bring up an important point about whatever your daily morning habit is, it should be something that gives you life and that you're passionate about it. You see a lot of the social media influencers. I'm up at 4 a.m., I'm doing 5 workouts, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. That may not be what works for you. That may not actually give you energy for your day.
If that burns you out, it makes you feel stressed and makes you feel cruddy, you don't want to do it. The other thing I think is important is winding down a bit at night so that you're not like lying in bed with stuff rushing through your head all the time. I really do feel like it matters to have enough of a plan, enough of a calendaring habit, or whatever it is for you in your career and in your life, that you can go to sleep knowing that you're done with what you did today and knowing that you know what's coming up tomorrow, but you're not lying in bed like stressing out over it.
Yeah.
And if you
And
can
I think
accomplish that and get good quality sleep, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even just putting the social media down before bed, because I feel like that dopamine dump makes your brain kind of spiral, and you finally put your head on the pillow and you're thinking about, the next thing you got to do. I think whatever the habit is to kind of unwind is super important to keep your mind from wandering as you actually go to sleep.
Yeah, I think really a phone detox for people who haven't done it is really great. If
It's
you are that person who has the phone attached to your wrist and you pick it up and you pick it up and you pick it up. We talked about distractions and how much they mess up your effectiveness. Your phone is your biggest distraction.
Yeah.
And I went on a wellness retreat. This goes back 6, 7 years now. And I was a beta tester for a good friend who ended up, she created a program that got sold to Canyon Ranch. So it was like, it was a really good program. And the first day they had this mocktail kind of party and then dinner. And at the table, there's like 12 of us at a table having dinner together. And somebody picked up their phone. And the health coach who was part of this said, "Hey, can I deal with this?" And she stood up and she basically said, "Listen, we don't have a problem with people using technology, but we're doing a lot of things together as a group. Can you please leave your phones in your room starting in the morning? And we're going to have breaks and you can check your messages and do what you need to do during the breaks or at night when you go to bed or early in the morning before we start. But let's try not to have the phones even with us during the times." And basically all day we were doing various things together. We had a break every few hours. And until that time, I was very tethered to my phone. Now it was like 5 days of that, and I don't care. Like I still use my phone, but I use it more as a tool than an appendage.
Yeah.
And it makes a big difference. And it really, when you can learn to use it as a tool and not to be interrupted by it all the time, it will change your life.
Yeah, that's a great point. Even on my days off, I feel like when I constantly have it in my hand, I'm not paying attention to my kids or focusing on being in the moment. It's a slow fade. I mean, before you know it, you look at the time you've spent on social media just scrolling and you're like, I can't believe I spent this much time per day doing something that's not productive, doesn't move my life forward at all, doesn't establish relationships with people. It is such a barrier that people don't realize, I think.
And we do that because it's a self-soothing mechanism. Typically, it's because we're stressed.
Mm-hmm.
You're stressed, you pick up the phone, you scroll. It's a way to avoid feeling the stress or to avoid the next task you need to do that you're not comfortable with doing. And if you just didn't and did that task, you'd be done with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bad coping strategy. I mean, like so many others, but I think it's probably the one that's most prevalent in our society is the overuse of our phones.
Yeah.
Not
And
doing
it
anything
also
productive.
disrupts, even if it's on silent and it vibrates, it disrupts your sleep. So it affects the quality of your sleep. So I find like I keep my phone in my office on my desk. And when I go to bed, I don't have I have a super dark bedroom on purpose. I don't keep my phone in there, and to have an alarm when I need an alarm, um, I have an Alexa in my room, and I set the alarm for the Alexa to tell me to get up. So I'm not like listening to anything. There's nothing that's nudging me with notifications or buzzing, or because even if it's on silent and it vibrates, it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, one habit I've started doing is keeping my phone away from my bed. And that accomplishes two things. I'm not aware of it when notifications are coming in because I can't hear it. It's not in my direct proximity. And then B, I can't silence my alarm in the morning. I have to physically get up and walk, several steps. If I'm going to go back to bed, I'm already up. I can't just turn over and turn off an alarm because I'm not a natural morning person at all. So it's when I get up, it's usually, it's a struggle for that first couple minutes to decide to get up and stay up and actually, go about my routine before I go to work.
It makes a difference. And I used to be that person who hit the snooze alarm, hit the snooze alarm, hit the snooze alarm. And the sad part of that is it ruins your sleep for the last hour you're in bed.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just get up and sleep another hour,
Yeah.
and that's another change I've made that I think makes a big difference for me is I set my alarm for when I need to get up now.
Yeah. But I do love the habit of, doing something for yourself before you go into your work or whatever you do, because then you're not rushed. Like, for example, I leave for work quite a bit of time before I have to be there because I don't like being stressed out in traffic. And it's so much easier to drive to work when you've got some time to spare. If there's traffic backing up or somebody cuts you off, it's much easier to take that in stride. And if you're constantly running late to everything, that's going to piss you off a lot more. You're going to be angry about traffic backing up, and that's just going to add more stress to your life, and you're going to show up for work already frustrated by something that you could have controlled earlier in the day by just giving yourself a little bit of that time.
The other thing is there's like that weird physics of traffic thing that goes on
Mm.
where, I remember I used to live outside Boston, and if I left at, let's say, 7:30 in the morning, it would take longer to get to work than if I left at 7:45. And I'm using that as an example, but basically it was like there'd be like this bell curve of when the worst traffic was. And there'd be times where you could actually leave earlier and somehow manage to get there later. I don't know how that works. It was crazy, but it was, and I read once there was a study on it. It's a legitimate phenomenon. How the heck that works, I don't know. But, if you're leaving earlier, you're not stuck in that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've been stuck in some bad Miami traffic too, so I think you probably deal with it even worse than we deal with it here in Colorado, but
That's why I live downtown and walk to everything.
yeah.
I rarely have to get in my car and go anywhere in Miami because I am right in downtown. I might have to walk away from a train station to take the Metro Mover. If I want to be in downtown, I'm right here.
Yeah.
A lot of what I do is online now anyway. But, when I'm traveling, I can take the train to the airport. I actually don't rely on to the airport. I don't. It's not reliable enough, but on the way home, I do.
Mhm.
Um, I can ride my bike to the beach. I do a lot of that just because I can. And that's another piece of it. I've found that I'll give you an example. I go to the hairdresser. By the time I get in my car, I drive in the traffic, I park my car, and I get to the hairdresser. It's faster for me to ride my bike there. It's about 6 miles.
Yeah.
It's faster to ride my bike, and then I get the exercise.
Yeah.
So I choose to make a point of riding my bike to the hairdresser because I'm getting both, right? I'm getting exercise and I'm enjoying myself, and I don't have to be stuck in traffic, pissed off, and then looking for a parking space.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Well, we're at about an hour. Is there anything else you want to share?
I don't think so, other than just to encourage people again to text the word clarity to 33777. And that way they can get that clarity exercise. And I'd love to be able to share that with people because I think it is really the first step to be able to take control.
Where else can people find you and see all the other stuff that you're working on?
I have a website. It's michelleniemeyer.com. And Michelle is spelled with two L's. Niemeyer is N-I-E, not like Neiman Marcus. People get it backwards sometimes. And the other place they could look for me is just on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Same thing. It's under my name, Michelle Niemeyer.
When do you anticipate the book that you're writing will be released?
The goal is 4 to 6 months from this weekend.
Very cool. Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm ready to go. Got the title down
Nice.
and I have the outline for it, and it's just a matter of banging it out and putting some studies with some of the things. There's a lot of things that I talk about that I know there are studies behind them.
Mhm.
I've seen the studies when I put them into my course, and but again, like I need to find some of that and update some of that research.
Sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Michelle. It was great to talk with you. I think this is a super valuable topic for my audience. I think burnout and how to, fix time management and bend time is a very key topic for the stuff we deal with every day. So
Thank you so much, Aaron. I really appreciate being on your podcast, and I hope that what I had to say is helpful to your people.
yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.